Welcome back, everybody, to more from the Sableyes. We're still going at Perth Regionals. I think this is going to be our last one, and this time we're having a look at Aaron Vanderkolk's top 16 Reggie Walls deck. I'm here with Jordan. How's it going, Jordan?
Pretty good, thanks. Although I'm about to have to play the stall deck, so we'll see how I'm going afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, anything could happen. First of all, if you like the content, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Do any of those kind of things. We really, really appreciate it. And also, you may notice that the screen is slightly fuzzier than normal. That's because this is Jordan's screen. I refuse to play this. I absolutely refuse to play Walls. I hate it, so I'm going to make Jordan do it. I think that's his punishment.
Yeah, it seems fair. And I was actually, for a very, very short period of time, considering playing this deck with Perth Regional, so I think it's not a terrible deck, it's no fun to play.
Yeah, no. That's my adage is, why would you travel to an event to not play Pokemon? But that's just me. I can understand why Aaron managed to make top 16 with it. It obviously gets results, and there's probably a reason why you don't see that much of it, because it takes a very patient person to play this deck, which is why I'm not going to be doing it.
There's also a testament to how good a deck is when pretty much no matter what deck you're playing, if you're almost always hoping not to hit this, it means it's probably got some pretty good matchups.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Jordan, it's your screen, so take it away.
Alright, so I'd say the main and most important card in this deck is going to be the 4 copies of Regigigas. It is the main wall in most matchups. I think just in terms of amount of damage for amount of prize cards you take, it is the most efficient Pokemon in the game. Registeel obviously basically has the HP of most GXs, most basic GXs, and gives away only 1 prize, so
yeah, and
the ability and the text don't really matter, but it's just that for that HP alone.
Yeah, the one negative, I guess, is that it's weak to fighting, which is a pretty common type, but, you know, whatever.
This is true, and of course, there are some Pokemon that can do 180 damage consistently, but for that we have 2 copies of Magikarp and Wailord GX, which has a little more than 180 HP.
Yeah, just slightly more.
And once again, don't bother reading any of the text on the card. All you need to know is it's got a lot of HP, and it gives away 3 prizes, which makes it not as good overall as Regigigas, but the fact that it simply can survive more, it doesn't get one hit KO'd by much, means that there are a lot of decks that just simply can't deal with this card at all, such as, I guess, Zapdos decks really just don't have the damage output to ever knock out Wailord and Magikarp tag team.
I've got nothing else to say. It's got 300 HP. That's all it needs to have.
And the third wall overall is Hooper. It's the first card we might actually have to read some of the text on the card to see why it's relevant. There is the Scoundrel Guard ability. I don't think I've ever read that ability out loud, but it blocks the damage from your opponent's GX and EX Pokemon, which is, once again, quite a large portion of the meta. So, yes, it can be blocked by Muck, but it does wall quite a lot of big cards in the format, so things that are doing more damage than you can out-heal, maybe you can just stop them from attacking altogether.
Yeah, and you can put it down against, like, some decks just attack with GXs, they don't have anything else. You can just chuck this down in certain matchups and just win, so...
For sure. So that rounds out most of the Pokemon you're going to be walling with, and the rest of the Pokemon are all kind of support or tech Pokemon, so we'll start with one of my favorites, which is the Lugia GX, which is here simply for its Lost Purge GX attack, which, with a double Color Synergy and a counter gain, allows you to put your opponent's active Pokemon and all cards attached to it to the Lost Zone, which is obviously good for getting rid of a big threat, which you're really struggling to deal with, but it's also pretty good in certain matchups, sending specific cards to the Lost Zone.
Yeah, so, and you can also find yourself in positions where maybe this is what you need to just completely remove the only thing that can kill your Hoopers. So, like, maybe they've only got one attacker that isn't a GX, you can get rid of it, send it to the Lost Zone. The only problem with it is that you need the 3 energy attachment, which means you're going to need a turn of setup. But usually, you know, you're playing Walls, you've got plenty of time.
Yeah, it's a little less consistent than the other version of this card in this deck, but it's more powerful. Sending cards like Energy to the Lost Zone can be very good in specific matchups, or one-off attackers that are causing you a lot of problems, but the more consistent version of this is, of course, the Articuno GX, which is used for Cold Crush GX. A bit more of a consistent version of Lugia, has a very similar purpose, but you don't have to be behind. You don't need to use Counter Gain to set up its attack, and it sends the energy to the discard rather than sending the whole Pokemon to the Lost Zone, which doesn't sound as strong, but at the same time, sometimes there's no difference between sending cards to the lost zone or discard pile for quite a few decks.
Yeah, so like if you've got an opponent's Lycanroc that you're unable to deal with, maybe you've got Hooper prized, or maybe there's a problem. Maybe you've just forgotten what's going on. You can Cold Crush, get rid of those 2 energy, and force them to reset up another Lycanroc. They're never going to be able to use counter game because you're not taking any prizes. So it's going to take them 2 turns before they're attacking again, and then you can start getting back into the swing of discarding those energy. So it can be a big card on a swing turn.
Yeah, it certainly comes to mind that it would be useful against decks like Pikachu Zekrom, where you don't really want to be putting down the Lightning Quick Lugia, but you do want to be getting rid of a big threat or in one turn.
And discarding 6 energy is a good number of energy to discard.
The final tech, which is quite an unusual tech in this matchup, but one that I actually found to be quite useful when testing with Aaron himself, was the Tapu Koko. And this is in here specifically for Flying Flip to try and win the game against Ultra Necrozma, because Ultra Necrozma in this matchup typically likes to just attack with Giratina the entire game and knock out their own Pokemon. They put damage counters everywhere, and they're like, it doesn't matter because my opponent's never taking prizes. I don't care how many prizes I give them as long as I never give them 6. Well, now all of a sudden, this deck has a way to take 6 prizes, and it's quite threatening.
Yeah, and especially if your opponent doesn't know that you're playing it, if you're in that matchup, maybe you're late in the game, Giratina's taken a few prizes, there's 40s everywhere, maybe you've got a couple of Pokemon with only 20 HP left, maybe Malamar or 2 with only 10 HP left. It's not unrealistic to suggest that this Tapu Koko could come in and take 3 or even 4 prizes in a turn, which is enough to really send a chill down your opponent's spine and start them worrying about what they need to do next.
I've certainly seen it happen before, and it's quite scary. And last Pokemon in this deck is, of course, the Unknown Hand, which is a fairly common tech in these stall decks to give yourself an extra win condition, and more importantly, in my opinion, it just allows you to win the game faster, because the biggest problem with Mill is you can't really win the game if your opponent is just not doing anything and just doing everything in their power to prevent themselves from decking out. This gives you a way to finish the game a little faster.
This gives you potential to maybe have a best of 3 rather than just a best of 1. And the exciting thing as well is when you win with it, we get to see the cool victory sign in PTCGO but written in unknowns. And I've never seen it before, so I really want to see it.
I'll do my best. But yeah, that'll round up the Pokemon lineup. Now we've got a very, very complicated supporter lineup. I think there was 27 supporters total in the deck, so we'll go through some of the more important ones first. In my opinion, I would say Steven's Resolve is this deck's equivalent to Lily or Cynthia. It's just the most important card in this deck. I mean, obviously, it doesn't matter if you end your turn to use this when you're not attacking 90% of the time anyway, and searching your deck for any 3 cards just allows you to kind of react to whatever your opponent's doing and counteract whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah, and if they're just going to sit and pass and try and stop you from milling them quickly, then you can just set up your Unknown Hand conditions quicker with Steven's Resolve.
And Stevens is very good at doing that. The next highest count, at least, in supporters is 4 copies of Whitney, which once again helps you to try and get that Unknown Hand play off. You can use Steven to search for multiple Whitneys and discard them in various different cards, and allows you to draw cards at a very fast rate. It's the best way to increase your hand size with a single card play.
And it's pretty good, especially in the late game, when your opponent, maybe they're down on energy, they're desperately trying to find a way to get the knockouts that they need to get, and you're just grinding through Whitney to get yourself the Unknown Hand win. Every 2 turns you're drawing 7 cards or something, because you've got all of those Whitney in the discard pile, plus you draw for turn. So feeling pretty confident when you're at that stage that you're going to be able to get to the 35 cards required for Unknown Hand.
It certainly allows you to rush your opponent and say, I'm going to win the game before you can, and that's saying something for a stall deck.
Yeah.
Next big supporter, I'd say, is Acerola, which is, in terms of stalling, probably the strongest supporter in this deck. You can get into situations where, with Lucamine, you're able to use Acerola every second turn, and you can effectively outwall some decks that aren't able to take a 2-hit KO on Wailord by just dealing every single second turn and never allowing damage to stay on the board.
And like when you think about it, Zapdos Jirachi is a big part of the metagame. If they're hitting maybe between 110 and 170 each turn if they've got a perfect turn. They need to have 2 perfect turns in a row just to get a knockout on Magikarp Wailord. If they miss 1 Electro Power in 2 turns, Acerola, and it's gone.
So yeah, if you ever get into a position where your opponent has no Electro Powers, Acerola can effectively just win you the game. Alright, and the last core supporter I would say for this deck is 3 copies of Lusamine, which has this very annoying cross up here, which for some reason still appears in standard decks. But
yeah, I think it's a good idea that it's banned in expanded though, because I mean we don't play it, but I hear that it makes it pretty awful to play.
Honestly, I'd be not too upset if they even chose to ban it in standard. But for now, we have to deal with it, and I think it's the almost sole reason why a deck like this actually works. Because if you're not able to chain those Acerolas or chain Whitney, chain Stevens, I feel like eventually your opponent is just going to run you out of cards, run you out of resources. They'll just keep attacking you. Eventually, you'll run out of cards. But this basically gives you an unlimited supply of resources where you can always outlast your opponent no matter what.
Yep. And if you're in a position where you're trying to not deck out, I mean, obviously you will have Unknown Hand win before that, but let's just presume that you're in a position where you can't win, but you also can't lose by decking out if you're playing Lusamine over and over. Just keep putting cards into your hand and shuffling stuff in, and you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, there's no way for this deck to ever deck out unless your opponent starts lost zoning your Lusamines, and in which case we have 3 of those anyway.
Yeah.
So that makes up all of the important supporters, so we'll just quickly go over some of the more tech supporters in short detail. There's 2 copies of Bill's Analysis, which is kind of just a tech to find those Stevens or any other card that you need to get quickly before you draw Steven. Obviously there's no Tapu Lele in this deck, so finding Steven right at the beginning of the game is pretty difficult. Bill just gives you that little tiny extra consistency boost, or maybe helps you reduce the number of dead draws you get later in the game.
Yep. If you're looking for those key supporters, Bills gives you an extra chance. You're not super worried about playing this. Like, you don't need to play Stevens every turn because you're happy to just say pass. You can say pass. That's fine. And Bills is a card that you can play just to help you get to that stage where you're starting to cycle stuff around. So definitely an interesting inclusion in this deck.
Yeah, I think it's not too bad. We also have 2 copies of Gladion because this is a deck that typically doesn't take prizes, so you want to make sure you have access to your 6 prizes throughout the game. Sometimes you get some unfortunate prizes or some key cards in the prizes that the only way to realistically unprize them is with Gladion. And the second copy of Gladion basically ensures that you're never going to be stuck without that option to take cards out of your prizes.
Yeah, exactly. The last thing you want with this deck is you don't want to have all of your Lusamine prized. That would completely ruin your day. So Gladion gives you the chance to get them.
Yeah, I'm sure there's, with all the one-offs, there are a high number of cards that could screw you over by being prized, so it seems like a fairly safe inclusion to play 2 of those. There's also 2 copies of Plumeria, which is actually the only energy denial item / support card in this deck, which you would typically expect to see more in a stall deck, but...
Are you sure? Isn't there Enhanced Hammer in this deck though, Jordan?
Oh yeah, you are right, there's Enhanced Hammer. This is the only way to get rid of basic energy.
Yes, sorry, that's alright. So I just had a moment there, I was freaking out, I was like, what?
You are correct, but getting rid of basic energy is definitely an important option to be able to have, even if you're not able to do it every single turn. There are some energy that you're just like, yep, I can't deal with that, I need that to go, and this gives you the option to do that.
Goodbye Lycanroc's fighting energy. I'm not interested in seeing you anymore.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one. And I think the rest of these supporters are actually one-offs. So we've got 1 Cynthia, which is basically just for a little bit of anti-deck out / bit more consistency. Probably not strictly necessary card, but just another nice consistency boost or hand refresh to have. I don't really need to talk about that too much. As an extension to Cynthia, we also have 1 Judge, which is pretty much the same purpose, but also has the added benefit in a mirror match, for example. You can kind of stop your opponent from ever getting off an unknown hand. So, as a general tip, I would say avoid playing the stall mirror match if you're running Judge, because it could go for a while.
Yeah, I'd just say avoid playing the stall mirror match, period. But
or just avoid playing stall. That's also
all that. That's fine.
And then, the last draw shuffle supporter is 1 copy of Tate Analyzer, which not only acts as a draw supporter, but also a switch effect, which helps you get your unknown into the active at the right time, or maybe acts as an extra way to deny your opponent prizes if they hit into the active and you can't heal it. just a nice utility card to have.
Yeah, and it's good that Tate Liza is seeing some play. I remember at the start of this rotation, everyone was looking desperately for draw supporters, and everyone was playing Tate and Liza, and then it's just disappeared. And I like this card. I think it's pretty cool. It gives you options.
And it's funny, I actually just realised that this deck is playing more Shuffle Draw supporters than quite a lot of the standard top tier decks we're seeing these days, which usually only play 2 Cynthia. So it's funny to see this deck might even have more Shuffle Draw supporters than a lot of the decks in the format.
It's actually quite interesting.
Alright, we also have 1 copy of Faber, which is a very key card for beating decks such as Zoroark, removing special energy or tools from all stadiums as well into the Lost Zone. Specifically good against people who use the Shuffle Oranguru to try and keep hold of their resources. You can get rid of their energy and send it to the Lost Zone so they can never get it back. Just a decent card in general.
Yep, more energy denial, just get rid of that DCE. Not interested in seeing it anymore.
I did actually forget earlier when I said there was only one way to discard basic energy. There is also Team Skullgrunt, and while it's not guaranteed, it is a way to kind of punish your opponent from playing too passively. Some people will hold a lot of their cards and wait to get them all at the right time, whereas Team Skullgrunt can really aggressively force your opponent to make a move before they're ready to do so.
Yep, just chuck them out of their hand, because you will sit there, people will just sit there with big hands passing, because they're not under any threat, they're never going to get knocked out. And normally when you play Team Skullgrunt, they're going to have some energy in there, because they're just sitting on it.
Yeah, and there's another way to punish your opponent for being too passive. You can also play the 1 copy of Mars, which acts not only as a small bit of consistency, but you can also chain it indefinitely with Lucamine to just accelerate the speed in which you're discarding your opponent's deck.
And since it's random cards, since you're not looking at energy or anything like that, sometimes you can just accidentally discard a card that is critically important to playing that matchup. Like you might just accidentally discard an energy from their hand,
or a rescue stretcher.
Or a rescue stretcher. You might just accidentally get rid of their only draw supporter that stops them from getting into stuff. It's random, so you're never guaranteed anything. But if your opponent's just sitting there and you're playing Mars every 2 turns, you're eventually going to hit something that's important.
Yeah, you might accidentally just win yourself the game. And I think that is it for all the supporters, besides this 1 copy of Guzma, which is just another way to kind of not only act as a switch effect, but more importantly, try and stall your opponent active, because if your opponent isn't attacking, that is basically what you are aiming to do with this deck. Fairly self-explanatory.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we move on to the items. There's a lot less items, but they're still quite impactful and important cards. The most important ones probably being 4 copies of Nest Ball as a way to basically stop your opponent from benching you out. It's very easy. You only open with 1 Pokemon, and you might just not get a second Pokemon for a couple of turns, and they might knock out your only Pokemon and lose the game. Nest Ball gives you that extra ounce to preventing yourself from losing right at the beginning of the game, but also just making sure you're getting the right Pokemon and not just any Pokemon.
Yeah, for sure. And that's usually the way that this deck loses, is by being benched out. I mean, I don't think I very rarely see a stall player lose a game past the 4th or 5th turn. It's normally that they'll just lose because they don't have the basic on the bench. So Nest Ball really important. Yeah,
it's pretty hard to take 6 prizes against this deck. And a lot of that has to do with the 4 copies of Max Potion. Now, we were saying before that with Acerola you can play that every 2nd turn, but Max Potion you can play every single turn if you have access to it, and with cards like Steven and Bill's Maintenance, it's not too hard to have it at the right time.
Yep, and it can put you in a position where you use Max Potion for the first 4 turns of the game, and by then you've set up your Acerola chain so you can just get Acerolas every turn, so it doesn't matter.
Or maybe you've just been buying your time to draw 35 cards with a whole bunch of Whitneys. It basically just allows you to have a bit more freedom with which supporter you can play for the turn, which is 100%. The most important part of the deck. We also have 2 copies of Rescue Stretcher, which is mainly for getting back some of those key Pokemon. There are a few one-offs in this deck, such as the Unknown Hand. You need to have that right at the end of the game. Or maybe your opponent's actually been managing to take out some of your walls, and you need to get those back because 2 Hooper might not be enough. I'd like to think 4 Regigigas will usually be enough, but hey, maybe you're running out and you need to get some of those back as well.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe you've got 8 prized. I don't know.
We also have, as you mentioned, there are 2 Enhanced Hammers, once again, helping you in matchups such as Zoroark. It doesn't really seem like there are too many different decks playing a whole bunch of special energy at the moment. We're in a very basic energy based format at the moment, but there's still a lot of beast energy running around. There's always uses for this card, and I feel like if you get it at the right time, it can just be one of the most devastating cards for your opponent.
And one of the interesting things is obviously the three main decks that are going around, maybe four if you include Blacephalon, they're all basic energy, but lots of those other kind of decks that you're not expecting to see that might have a decent matchup against you, they usually play some sort of special energy in some way. Like if they're playing some hybrid build or something like that to try and get around you, you can just enhance hammer away their unit energy or whatever it is. Just makes it a lot easier. Always worth having two of, especially when Zoroark's big. I mean, you're going to use it against Zoroark most of the time.
Yeah, it's not too uncommon to see some rainbow energy and unit energy running around. Another unusual card that we see only realistically in store at the moment, although it has seen a lot of play in the past, is Countercatcher. Obviously, this is a deck that typically doesn't take prizes, so Countercatcher effectively is just a better Guzma overall in this deck, which is why we see 2 copies of Countercatcher and only 1 copy of Guzma. Effectively makes up for the 3 counter Guzma we see in a lot of other decks.
And that means if they do play down the Muck to turn your Hooper off, then you just Countercatcher that Muck straight out. And he's stuck in the active. Good fun.
They can only get him out the active so many times before he's just going to be stuck there forever. Alright, what else have we got? We've got 1 copy of Ultra Ball, which is a bit of a weird inclusion, but I remember talking to Aaron, and the main reason that it plays 1 Ultra Ball is actually for potential mirror matches, where if you can use Ultra Ball off of a Steven to discard your Whitneys faster than your opponent, then you can get to 35 cards a lot quicker than your opponent can by chaining your Whitneys at a faster rate. And when it comes to a mirror match, all it really matters is who can draw cards faster, and Ultra Ball, surprisingly, is probably the best way to draw cards in this deck.
That's really interesting, isn't it? That like you don't have any other ball support. It's just Nest Ball to not lose in the first couple of turns. Yet Ultra Ball is still one of the most important cards in the deck, just not for the reason that you would expect it to be.
And hey, it still doesn't hurt to have a 5th out to get your basics at the right time as well.
Well, of course.
Extra consistency card now.
Of course.
And finally, we have 1 switch, which is mainly to allow you to switch into the unknown at the perfect moment, because besides this 1 copy of switch, every other way to switch into the active is a supporter, whether it's Acerola or Taint and Liza. If you want to play a Whitney to draw up to 35 cards, you then can't play Tate and Liza until the next turn. So with the 1-off copy of Switch, it allows you to get the unknown into the active on the same turn that you get yourself up to 35 cards, which is a pretty big deal in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the key, 100%. And it's not the last item, because we've still got...
Yes, there is still the 1-off counter game, which we briefly talked about a little bit before. It's mainly here just for the Lugia to allow you to attack with the GX attack, take out a big threat when you're behind. You're almost always behind. It doesn't really have too many other uses other than maybe attacking with Flying Flip using a Rainbow Energy. But that's pretty specific. Overall, it's mainly just for that Lugia GX using Lost Purge GX, which is a pretty good attack to have access to.
Yep, just to pop it and get rid of it there.
Now, as for Stadium cards, we have 1 copy of Mount Killer, which seems like a pretty obvious inclusion into a Steel deck. The retreat cost of all basics being 1 more just makes it easier to lock things in the active position, and that's really all you need to do to win some matchups, is lock your opponent in the active and wait for them to deck out.
Yep, and it's like having an Absol on the bench, but it's not a threat of getting knocked out. Just can be good use, even if it's only down for a couple of turns before it gets replaced. It can be enough to slow down your opponent for the turns that you need to win.
And the cool thing is that you can actually use Lusamine to indefinitely retain Mount Killer if you really, really need to get it back, because Lusamine does get back Stadiums. Of course, it can't get back this one, but it is still worth playing the Wondrous Labyrinth against decks such as Lost March, for example, which really don't play much, if any, counter Stadiums. It really just screw those decks over, and it's annoying in general for a lot of decks. I don't know many decks that enjoy having this in play.
Yeah, well, most decks are built around having a specific energy cost and getting that specific energy cost when required. And I can't think of that many decks, maybe only Ultra Necrozma, that can consistently get an extra energy on top of what they need to attack. So it's a pretty good one. It's going to slow your opponent down. And when people are mostly playing 2 or 3 Stadiums, if you get it down at the right time, it can completely cripple someone's deck for the rest of the game.
For sure. Now, onto the last 2 cards of the deck. I think we've already covered what they do for the most part, but it does play 1 double colorless energy and 1 Rainbow Energy just for those unique scenarios where you need to clear a big throw off the board using either Articuno GX or Lugia GX, or maybe it's even just used to retreat and unknown the open loop. But for the most part, the energy are mainly just there for that 1 or 2 crucial turns where you need to get something out of the way.
Yeah, you might only use it once, but you still need to use it that one time. Now, Jordan, we've been going for 25 minutes on this deck profile. It's been exciting, but I tell you what, I cannot wait to sit down for another 40 minutes and not play Pokemon.
It's going to be a good time.
I'm excited. Now, when we were, because we generally test these decks before we record, just so we know how they're going to play in reality, because it's easy to theory craft and not so easy to play. And we came up against another stall deck. So if that happens again, we might just quit.
Well, the game we played against still actually went very well for me because they were not running any Whitney, which gave me a distinct advantage in being able to pull off Unknown Hand, whereas they were unable to. But I don't think we're going to be facing any stall mirror matches in this game.
No, I don't think so either. Based on the colouring there.
Yeah, it looked like it might be a Zapdos variant. So we'll have to see. It could be Pikachu Zekrom, which is one of the deck's tougher matchups. And it looks like it's going to be Zapdos. So looking at my hand right now, I only have one option. Play a Shuffle, draw supporter, and hope to get a better hand.
Yep, I think that's probably the way to go.
This deck here draws 1 more card than Tantalizer, so let's go with that.
Let's do that. All we need to do is get another Pokemon. And we got one.
I think we've done it. Alright, so what do you reckon the best walling option is against Zapdos? I reckon
it might be the old Magikarp Wailord there with 300 HP. I reckon that sounds pretty good.
Got a lot of HP. Certainly think.
It depends on whether you want to gamble on how thick their Pikachu Zekrom line is. If they got a thick one, then maybe it's a bit of a risk. But you know.
Well, at the very least, it'll buy me a couple turns to kind of set myself up with this Steven, because in the beginning turns, you don't really have much you can do to deal with your opponent, but once you start setting yourself up with those Steven chains, you can kind of control the pace of the play. Yeah. I do wonder if the opponent's going to be playing any Pikachu Zekrom in this Jirachi list, but because it's the Ultra Beast version, I'd say it's quite a lot less likely they're running any form of Pikachu Zekrom. We'll have to wait and see. It's a pretty standard turn so far, just haven't seen a supporter from them yet, but I'm guessing that's what they're after with this Jirachi.
Well, they're going for Electro Power. They're going to try and rush you down, but of course, if they use Electro Power to try and kill this Hooper, then they're never killing the Wailord, so...
Yeah, if they choose to waste 2 Electro Powers to take 1 prize on this Hooper, I am completely okay with that, because I feel like if they ever run out of Electro Powers, they're kind of just screwed. And wow, that's actually a pretty average turn from our opponent here, but I guess you don't really need to do that much against stall decks too often. So I'm going to start off with the Steven chain here. Usually at the beginning of the game, it's smart to get Steven into Steven. I'm just wondering what else are we going to be wanting to set up. What are you thinking of might be some of the best cards to get here? I'm thinking maybe another Nest Ball.
I don't know. There's so many options.
I think for now I'm just going to grab some of these safe options and another Steven for next turn.
That seems reasonable. Because, I mean, all we really want to do is make sure that if they don't knock something out, that it's still their next turn, and that we're able to survive in case something does go wrong.
Yeah, I feel like in an ideal world, I'm able to set myself up in that position where I've got the Lusamine and the Acerola, where I can heal every second turn, and they're never able to 2-hit, so in theory I can just outwall them. But I'm still missing a few cards to be able to pull that endless combo off. I also think that setting up for a potential Mars at some point might be the way to go, to kind of try and accelerate the speed that they're being milled.
Cards, yeah. Because they're going to want to sit back and not do too much. Obviously, they know what they're playing against. They're going to try and mitigate their losses, so it's always good to try and accelerate the rate at which they're discarding cards.
Oh, they're actually going to bring the Wailord Magikarp into the active spot.
Oh, it's very kind of them.
Yeah, I feel like I feel a bit more safe having that in the active, because I know there's nothing they can really do to knock that out, as long as I'm not an idiot and put a whole bunch of energy on the board for them to use Tapu Koko. But I mean, it's not really even an option for me to put a bunch of energy on the board. I physically can't with this deck.
No, that's At most, it's doing 150. That's literally the most that it could do.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep up these Stevens. I think I'll grab myself another Stevens and maybe a. I'm thinking I could grab the Asterola just in case they start attacking soon. And other than that, I'm feeling pretty comfortable overall. It is a bit concerning seeing a few max potions prized, so I might grab a Gladian as well just to be safe.
Yep, and it means you can check out the rest of your prizes as well. You never know, maybe there's something in there that we desperately need that we didn't notice that was prized because it's a one-off.
Yeah, it's certainly pretty interesting playing this deck in comparison to any other deck. I mean, you're not really trying to win the game more so than you're trying to find the best way to stop your opponent from winning, so it's really interesting thought process. I'm not quite used to this style of play, but hey, that's what we're looking today, right?
Well, and it's always very jarring because, like, I know personally, I really struggle when it comes to decks that require you to be more intricate with your energy placement. Like, I love decks like Blacephalon where I can just slap them down anywhere and it doesn't matter. And then there's decks like, you know, Zoroark, which have a few less energy. And then you get to a deck like this, where out of 60 cards, you've maybe got 25 one-of copies. You've got to think a lot about what you need to do, and if you're going to be really successful with the deck, you need to be thinking like turns and turns in advance, which can be, you know, it can be really, really tough.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But it looks like our opponent has finally gotten themselves into a position where they're comfortable to start attacking. They've played an Electro Power, so I think they're going to try and deal with this Wailord. And as expected, there is the concession, because that is what pretty much always happens with these more decks.
Because why would you spend your free time playing against Stall? I
don't reckon we should go for
one more.
Go
Go for one more. We've only been going for half an hour. It's funny because it took 5 minutes of our 30-minute video so far just to run through all the cards in this deck. So we may as well go for one more, because you never know. Hopefully they just concede and we can just get on with our lives and never think about it again until Aaron plays it at the next tournament.
It's funny because it's not even that unlikely that we do get a concession, because that seems to be what happens with Regigigas. You either play against someone who actually has a way to deal with the deck and you lose somewhat quickly, or you play against someone who has no way of dealing with anything you're doing, so they're like, yep, I'm not going to bother playing this game because it's going to take me half an hour to lose.
Yep, and it's one of those things, it's part of the reason why it's such a good deck to take to a tournament as well, because most of the time when you're testing, people don't want to test against walls. It's boring. It takes too long.
Yeah, I can't say I've done too much testing with or against the deck, so it's a pretty good experience, I guess, learning to be in the mind of a Stall player.
Yep, in their dark, depraved minds.
Now, I saw Lightning and Metal, and I see some Pikachu Zekrom sleeves from the opponent, so I think this game's going to be a little tougher than the last one.
Potentially.
Let's see. That's my mulligan hand.
That is your mulligan, yep.
Shouldn't look into that too carefully. Alright, here's the information. I see a Howl.
That's an interesting choice.
I mean, that could honestly be annoying if they're able to build a big hand size, and I can't really do anything about it. Let's go with the Regigigas, I think.
Yeah, let's do that. And on the plus side, we opened with our Stevens Resolve, so we're all set to start. We just need to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a position we can lose the game in the first couple of turns.
I feel like any game where you open with Stevens Resolve is such a huge difference to a game that you don't. It's almost like back in those days when people used to play Talonflame. It's like such a huge difference whether you open with that card or not.
Yeah, 100%. And like, yeah, it's a big problem if you don't have it. Like we saw in the last game, we really had to gamble on that Cynthia. Like it paid off. We got what we needed, but we had to risk it.
Alright, so this is going to be a much tougher game, and I know this matchup is winnable, but I'm not sure what the exact strategy to beating this matchup is. Well, I've got a couple ideas.
I'm suspecting that maybe one of the good things that we could do is just let them set up a really fat Pikachu Zekrom here and then Lost Zone him or discard those energy with Articuno. That could be a way to go about it.
Yeah, that's one of my main things. I think we're going to have to do that at some point. Another thought is just having this Hooper kind of forces them to waste Electro Powers, and if they ever run out of Electro Powers completely, maybe we can use that Wailord Stall tactic, where we just H-roll a Wailord every second turn, but we need to run them out of Electro Powers before we can even consider that.
Yeah, before we can think about it.
So for now, I think the safe play is just going to be trying to get a bunch of Regigigas down to make sure we survive a while, force them to waste Electro Powers, hopefully, and set ourselves up a bit with the Stevens here. Do you think it's worth playing either of these stadiums right now? I think I want to wait to see a stadium from them before I do.
Well, I don't think we probably need to use it. Also, is it the does old Zeraora reduce the retreat cost to 0, or does it reduce it to have no retreat cost? Because that's
I believe they have no retreat cost. There's no way to increase that.
That means that our stadium is pretty much useless apart from as a replacement.
Yeah.
So it's probably best to just hang on to it.
Well, I'm seeing that the Lugia is prized in this game, so if I am going to be going for that strategy, it's going to have to be with the Articuno GX. Other than that, I might just grab Acerola just to be safe. I'm not holding one, am I? Nope.
No, you got a max potion, but...
Let's grab those cards, just in case our opponent starts chaining consistent attacks this turn, which is not that unlikely. I could see that happening very easily.
As could I.
There is an argument, maybe I should have benched the Hooper on that turn, so if they do get the knockout with a Zekrom, a decent Pokemon to switch into. But I don't think it's a huge problem at this point. I'm happy to just chain with a Regigigas for the time being.
Yeah, and you have to. The thing that is important to remember is that even if they do get a Pikachu Zekrom set up, they're still only taking one prize until they can GX. And if we can remove their Pikachu Zekrom before they GX, then we should be sitting reasonably pretty. Like, I don't know the average count of energy that a Pikachu Zekrom deck runs, but it cannot be more than 12.
Yeah, I think it's around 10 to 11 typically, maybe 12 at most. We see the Howl from our opponent.
It's the Howl, the big Howl.
It's funny, because there's a very good chance we lose to this Howl deck right now.
Oh dear. Well, that actually...
a card that you see and you think, oh, I win this game,
yeah,
but
I usually win.
I'm not feeling too confident.
Well, since we're not doing too much critical thinking right now, Jordan, perhaps in the next downtime we have, you could explain your interesting deck choice a few years ago, where you played a card that was similar to Howl in a proper tournament.
Oh, you're not going to make me bring that up, are you?
Well, I mean, I'm bored. We're playing Stall, man. I'm sitting waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm thinking that this might be a game where Plumeria could be of use, so I'm thinking about grabbing that for the time being. Otherwise, I'm really not sure what I should be going for here. It's kind of just
it might
a waiting
be worth
game.
grabbing a Whitney or something so that you can Plumeria the Whitney away.
Yeah, Whitney's not a bad idea. I think that's probably more useful than the Nestball right now, so...
It gets you closer to a win condition. You've already got a couple of Pokemon that you can put down to save yourself if you have to.
It's so weird that in this deck, when you play Steven, you search your deck for any 3 cards you want, but like, there isn't really that much you want half the time.
Actually, it's really strange. Like, you go, oh, I don't actually know what I want to do.
Yeah, so we see
I can pick anything, the agony of choice.
Electro Power is a little bit annoying. It means that they're going to be taking a knockout this turn, but as I was saying before, my strategy in this game is to hopefully just run them out of Electric Power, so they've only got 1 or 2 left, and then start benching the Wailords. So I guess seeing Electro Power isn't too bad.
No,
I'm starting to think maybe I should have grabbed that Nest Ball after all, just because I'm losing a Regigigas on this turn. It's starting to get a little scary.
Well, that's okay. They could potentially get really arrogant this turn and full blitz to themselves, which would be interesting, to say the very least.
Yeah, I'm not actually holding the Punish, unless this brings itself into the active. I can't remember, does it?
Oh, well, you can just...
it does go into your active. So, what do you reckon? You reckon that might be the play right now?
Oh, well, they've got 6 energy on them, and that's pretty much half their energy. So
yeah, I reckon we should do that. And I can still play... Oh, no, I can't play Stevens if I do that.
Can't you? What does the ability actually do on this Articuno?
When you play a Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you switch it with your active Pokemon. If you do, move any number of Water Energy, test your other Pokemon as you like. So I'm actually going to put the Rainbow Energy on the active, so the damage doesn't go on the Articuno. And then go ahead and use that ability.
Sure.
Seems pretty good.
Sounds good.
And I can't Steam him, because that would mean I don't get to attack. But I am going to... What do you reckon? Maybe even just Whitney.
Yeah, just Whitney, just chuck it. I mean, you were going to chuck it with the Plumeria anyway, but we're getting rid of all the energy on the field, so...
Let's do that. And I think I might bench the Hooper now, just in case if they charge up something next turn with a Tapu Koko Prism. Unfortunately, this does put the energy in the discard and not the lost zone. I think if I had access to the Lugia that turn, I would have considered using that instead.
Oh!
Opponent doesn't seem too happy about that.
Oh no! Oh no, he says, seeing all of his energy move to the bin very swiftly.
And yeah, this is a situation where I'm pretty happy to be holding this Plumeria, because they're going to be charging up this Zekrom a little slower this time, I feel.
They are. They certainly are.
Or maybe not.
Oh well, you know. Energy switch. That's okay.
Yep, they're probably going to knock me out this time.
It looks like it. We could be
This got bad real quick.
We could be in big trouble here.
Well, maybe they're just going to go for the half hit with a Zapdos. See what they get with this Stellar Wish. If they get an energy switch, I might be a little worried. There's another Electro Power.
Which is also worrying, because it means that they potentially get the knockout if they do already have the energy switch in hand.
Now that I've put a little bit more thought into last turn, maybe putting the Rainbow Energy on the Articuno would have been smarter, as it gives me access to Acerola. Whereas now, this Articuno is basically guaranteed to die, it's just a matter of when. Oh, they're going double Electro Power.
Double Electro Power. Do they have...
Knockout with Zapdos. I would not be surprised to see a Choice Band coming out. Oh no, they're just getting ready for future time.
Plumeria, quick, use it!
Yep, I'm definitely going to do that, but it is still a little concerning that I'm not having access to the Acerola. So we're going to play the Plumeria. I don't think Tapu Koko is super important in this matchup, and I think this Stadium here is also pretty useless against a deck that has 0 Regigigas on the bench. So I can slowly get rid of all these energy off of this Zekrom. We are in a position where, since they've used the Tapu Koko, which is probably a good attacker for them gone as well, I am hoping that I can keep these energy in the discard pile from now on. So
yeah, and if we can continue, like if we can Lucamine and get that Plumeria back, and we can eventually start whittling down the amount of energy that they have, they still need to take 5 prizes. Like they need to get 3 knockouts. Like here I'm going Acerola here off of. They mustn't have had anything else. They must have had literally access to no other cards, because that's...
Oh yeah, I wasn't particularly planning on damaging them anytime. Here's the energies. I thought they might have had Thunder Mountain. So we know they've got the Electro Power, so they're going to be taking at least 2 prizes. But here's the point where they're already 2 Electro Powers down. And I now know that their best non-GX attacker is actually in the loss zone. Maybe we can kind of force them to waste the rest of their Electro Powers on this Pooper. The scary part, of course, is that they can GX attack next turn. So I do actually have to bench realistically. Because I don't... actually, let me check. Does this step block it on the bench? Prevent all effects of damage. Okay, so this is safe on the bench regardless. So I don't have to be too careful. But hey, I just got an Escalon anyway.
And also, yeah, because the Wishful Baton's on that Pikachu Zekrom, and they've played 2 Electro Power, is there a way that they can actually knock out a Wailord this turn? If you put it down?
Not really, no.
And how many energy have they got in the bin?
I think it's 5.
Because, I mean, if they only play 11 energy, then we could put our Stadium down and force them to...
This is true, but at the same time,
they could just simply replace the Stadium, so it's not like a...
Yeah, I think I'm going to bench this Regigigas, even though they could take 2 prizes with a Guzma. I think it's still the safe play to do.
Is it worth, and listen to me here, is it worth using the Max Potion on the Regigigas with 10, just so that he can't take 2 prizes next turn with his GX
That's
attack?
actually pretty spicy, and I'm kind of down for it, to be honest. Let's give that a go. Well, I have to put it up here. I don't seem very happy about something. I think I'm just going to go ahead and steep.
I think that's just a general sad face because I'm playing against the Storm. I don't think that was anything in particular.
Yeah, probably not. So I'm going to grab another Plumeria, I think. I really need to make sure I'm able to start chaining these Acerolas in the future. I might get Gladion because there's a Wailord prize. I'm going to need 2 Wailords in the future. I've already got the Lucamine. What else could be good? Any ideas on command?
Grabbing the Stevens so that when you get a chance to, you can search out some other stuff?
I reckon that's a pretty fine idea. Let's go ahead and grab those. When you're holding 4 supporters and you decide, let's grab 3 more.
Let's grab 3 more supporters.
That's what this deck does.
Yep.
At least this is a more interesting matchup. I'm really not feeling too confident right now. just because at some point I feel this GX attack might take 2 prizes, and then they can take the last prizes with Zapdos on a Hooper. They do still have 2 Electro Powers left, so it's going to be a close one, I think.
And here's the thing, they've used 1 energy switch. I feel like bringing out something with a counter catcher at some point might give you a chance to win the game, just because I don't know if they're going to have an extra energy floating around. I mean, they're going to get a knockout on this Hooper here, but...
Yeah, I think at the very least I should wait until late game to try something like that. Especially since they should still have access to a bunch of Guzmas. I think, are they just going to be attacking with Zapdos for free this turn?
And yep. They're going to try and knock out this Hooper. So that's pretty much all of the Electro Powers gone. I think if you have a look through their discard pile in a second, I think they've either used 3 or 4.
So if I can pull off a wacky Wailord chain, at some point I can eventually win the game in theory. This seems like a good turn to play this time, I think.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
So as long as I don't bench anything with 170 HP, it's going to be tough. Just this GX attack is really scaring me. I'm actually considering just using Gladion right now to get
that Wailord.
Although I think the better play might be
The
Stevens to get the Wailord, and then also grab a bunch of Max Potions. Because eventually I'm gonna need to Max Potion some bench damage from a GX attack.
Yes.
So I'm thinking 2 Max Potions and a Wailord is probably the safest play overall.
Okay. Can you check to see how many Electro Power they've used?
I believe they've used all 4.
Okay.
They have indeed used all 4.
Okay,
so they are now...
Here we're in a point here where they're going to use their GX attack to kill one of the Regigigas. You can put down your Wailord and then Acerola the Regigigas on the bench.
And then in theory, I think I can Ace Roll chain the rest of the game.
In theory, yes.
So, thank you for telling me the Max Potion that 10 damage earlier. I reckon that might have come up a bit.
It's a pretty clutch play.
Although it's annoying that they might actually just do 10 damage with a Zapdos.
Did they just put their last energy on a Zapdos?
They put an energy on a Zapdos. Let's see, 7 in play plus 5. That's quite a lot of energy in play.
That's 12.
I do think they've probably got energy switches left, because there is only the 1 in discard. But, I don't know, they're definitely walking a fine line here. And even though I haven't really been focusing on milling them, they're actually getting quite low as well, with only 14 cards remaining in deck. And there's the GX attack. Okay, this is exactly what I wanted to see. Your opponent must be feeling pretty good at this point. 1 prize left, 10 damage left on a Regigigas. But I'm going to go ahead and bench a Wailord, play an Acerola, or do I play Max Potion this time? No, I think I play Acerola.
I think you play Acerola. It's still safer to do that. I mean, I can't think of a way that they're going to be able to do it, but now.
So I guess that's all I really need to do right now.
I don't think there's any way that this deck can do 300 damage this turn. He says just before the deck does 300 damage.
I'd be pretty surprised. So my current thought process is next turn I'm going to Gladium for the second Wailord and use Max Potion.
Yep.
And then after that I can chain Acerola every second turn, which as long as they're not 2-hitting, we can eventually win. But the problem is they are eventually going to be 2-hitting. What is the way to stop Zekrom from 2-hitting? That's going to be the main concern.
I don't know, if you can get a turn where you can discard an energy from that Zekrom, I feel like you might be able to get there.
I should be able to get a turn eventually, but at the same time, it's already used its GX attack. It's got 3 extra energy on it right now.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, I didn't consider that.
We're gonna Max Potion. We're gonna Gladion for the second Wailord. I do know that when Aaron was testing this deck, one of the cards he was considering playing for a little while was a Choice Helmet, which allowed you to, in this matchup, force Zekrom to 3-hit KO. But with the current list, I'm not sure if there's any way to force him to 3-hit.
It's going to be very interesting.
It is. As you were saying before, though, it is quite possible that we could get into a scenario where they are basically forced to run out of switch effects at some point. They've got no energy left in play. But for now, I guess I'm just gonna start ace rolling these.
Well, actually, you might even just Max Potion now and then Lucamine.
I could Lucamine, but I think I'm best off saving Lucamine for when I'm actually getting 2 ace rollers back.
Oh yeah, no, fair enough. That's
fair.
I
can ace roller this turn.
Yeah.
And then Lucamine for ace roller next, double ace roller next turn. But at the same time, they're forcing me to heal every single turn because they're getting an exact 2 hit off on this whale. There's got to be a way to reduce their damage output by just 10 damage. And this list, I just don't think it has the options. Oh, what's this?
What is going on? They're just choosing to lose by the looks of it.
Well, you know how I was saying they need to do just 10 less damage?
Well, this is doing 10
does
less.
20 less damage.
So,
and I can now get rid of one of the energy on Pikachu Zekrom.
That's actually a really interesting play. I don't know why they would do that.
So, I need to set up Plumeria. Do you think I do it this turn, or do I max potion? I have to play max potion regardless. So yeah, I'm thinking about max potion Plumeria.
Max potion Plumeria. The problem is, though, that they're still going to be able to half hit you.
Or do I go max potion Lucamine on this turn?
I'd probably Lucamine, because you are still in a position... If you max potion and then Plumeria, you don't have a way to heal that Magikarp wave.
Yeah, so it's going to be tough to find a turn to play that Plumeria.
But that's okay, because you've got 2 Lucamine in hand, you've got 2 Acerola in hand, you should theoretically be able to just chain this forever.
And hey, hopefully one day I draw the 4th max potion. When I draw the 4th max potion, I'll have that turn where I can play the Plumeria. But for now, I'm
make sure we put the Wailord down before we Acerola.
Yes, good idea. Do you think I'm still considering playing the Plumeria because he's still got too many energy switch.
Yeah.
Like, no, because right now he can't actually knock me out, right? The max damage they can do this turn is 150.
Question though, because
he can't put choice band on this, and he can't.
If he puts it on the active, he's 10 off.
So I'm actually going to go ahead and play the Plumeria on this turn. This seems like the opportunity they've given me to
do it.
Because I'm really scared that this Zekrom is the only thing that can really kill me. Everything else, I think, is going to be fine. So as long as they don't power that Zekrom up again, I think I can... Oh, they've got a 13th.
Got more energy. What is going on?
Well, that's a little concerning. They are still not killing me this turn, luckily. I should have really saved that max potion last turn, because I didn't really do the maths to see if I can survive.
That's alright. You're alive. It's all fine.
Yeah, for now.
You're alive.
I don't think I'm going to be getting an unknown handoff anytime soon.
I don't think that's going to be our win condition here.
Guess we go for another Acerola. And pass. Yep. But I'm going to run out in about 2 turns, and then there's nothing I can really do about that. They've got 13 energy, which is a big problem. They gave me a bit of hope. They were like, yep, I'm going to switch into Tapu Koko and give you a chance to win. But in secret, I've got the game anyway with the 13th energy.
Yep, that you weren't expecting us to play. Oh well.
I guess I just keep playing the Acerola because it's really all I can do. But this is the last turn I'm going to be able to do that. So I think the writing might be on the wall at this point.
Yep. I guess it could come down to... I don't know. Well, hopefully we top deck the max potion and we give ourselves a turn. Yeah,
that will allow me to potentially Lucamine for Acerola and maybe even Maria. It's not... Oh, it could be a Guzma.
You could Guzma. If you Guzma something up and he doesn't play the 14th energy, then you could
But he hasn't used energy switch yet. That's the main concern. He's only used 1, sorry. I think it's my best bet though.
I don't think you can win the game without doing it.
Play the Guzma onto this and see what happens.
Yep. And I think if you lose, we just call it because, hey, that's the game.
And this is a tough matchup.
This is by far the worst matchup for this deck. So
let's see what happens. Did I sack and buy myself a turn? I've only got 6 cards left in deck. There are a whole lot of cards in hand. I can't use Guzma, but there's
the energy switch. So just as long as they move the energy from the right Pokemon, they are fine. Oh.
Might be worth considering the Choice Helmet if you do want to beat this matchup. I know that was one of the cards Aaron was considering, but obviously opted not to play in the end. But yeah, it's certainly a winnable matchup, but very tough. You really have to just hope you can capitalize on an opponent's misplay at some point.
Yeah, for sure. But it was good. Showed off some of the key things. We got to use Articuno, which was fun. So we can't.
Yeah, I feel like we got to show off a lot of the cool tricks that this can play.
Yeah, we got to do most of the stuff. We just didn't get to win with Unknown.
No. It doesn't seem like the kind of matchup where you'll ever get to do that, unfortunately. But we had a good run.
We got there. But yeah, thanks Jordan for playing that one, so I didn't have to.
Not a problem, mate.
And thanks everyone for coming along and watching. If for some reason you're a sadist and you enjoyed that, then feel free to like, comment, subscribe. That would be really greatly appreciated. Because we love getting feedback. We love comments. We can get everyone in the world to comment. I'd feel really popular. 7 billion comments. What do you think, Jordan? Is that too high to aim?
We're a little ambitious there, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, tell you what, we'll go for 1. We'll go to the other extreme. But yeah, come along, communicate with us. I'm sure VDK will be in the comments talking about this because he loves this deck.
I'm sure I misplayed multiple times, besides the ones that I noticed myself.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about all the times we stuffed up because we definitely did. And our first mistake was playing stall. And on that note, we'll leave it all there. Thanks, Jordan, for doing that.
No problem.
And we'll see everyone next time. Catch you later for more from the Sable Eyes. See ya.